to teach you the easiest way to visualize. This is the way that I've used. This is the way I learned from Creative Visualization by Sakti Goen. Really great book. I think you should check it out. And I just break it down into three steps. Um, One, write it down. Two, relax. Three, imagine. Just three things. So the first step is to write it down. Um, I remember initially when I got into visualization, I was attempting to almost craft the image of what it is that I wanted at the same time as actually doing it. And that's honestly the hardest way to do it. You feel like, well, I'm not doing this right. It's very easy to get into that by approaching it without any sort of prep. So this is kind of where I think it starts. It should start with writing it down. So pick something that you'd like to change, right? Let's say you want to get better in social situations. Cool. So you have something that you want to change, your presence in social situations and the outcomes, right? The first thing you want to do is write that down, what it is that you want, what your intention is. Um, and then write out what does getting that look like. And by that I mean what does successfully showing up in the way that you want to look like? What does it feel like? In the more rich the image is, I think the much better. I don't know why when I'm recording videos my nose just starts acting up. It's very interesting. I don't know what that is, but back to it. When you want to create an image that's as rich as possible for yourself, so write out how do you feel internally. You feel calm. Your heart isn't racing like it normally is. You have a smile on your face. You know, what does it smell like? Maybe, you know, you're wearing your perfume that makes you feel great about yourself. You smell good, you smell attractive. Um, what is the other person's reaction? The person is, has a smile on their face. They're looking, interested and intently at you. What are you doing? So just try and build an image of that moment captured, right? um that moment, or even the moment after, right, of um you feel fulfilled having gone to socialize with people and you felt leaving feeling that you've met people you can connect with. So just spend some time really just crafting a bit of what your happy outcome looks like. You showing up in that new light, what does that look like? What does that feel like internally? All of that, right? So that's the first one. So you have written it down, right? Then when it's time to actually do the visualization, I'd say set out like, start small, honestly, because it's a muscle, right? Even just like normal meditation, you can start with 5 minutes, you can start with 10 minutes. The second part of this entire thing, but the first part of actually getting into visualization is relaxing, right? Think about it. If you were about to perform, like if you do anything at a high level, um your work, if you make art, or whatever, when you're doing it, the key to it is focus. But you also realize that there's almost different types of focus that I've also come to realize. There's like a very hard focus where you're almost trying to like, it's almost like fakish focus where you're so strained on pushing everything out that you're actually not focused, right, on what you're doing. You're more so focused on keeping everything out. And there's a softer, more malleable focus where you are flowing into the thing that you're doing. And so you want to get into that place. And so you take the first, if you set out 10 minutes to visualize, use the first like 2 minutes to relax your body. And the best way, honestly, that I know to relax is, breathing, intentional breathing in through your nose, either out through your nose, out through your mouth, and just continue. Um, Also, belly breathing is part of that, right? So it's like you're taking in through your nose. And when you breathe in, you're letting your stomach expand. And when you breathe out, you let your stomach contract, right? And you take very deep breaths and do that over like 2 minutes, until you feel much more relaxed than you came in. It's all very relative, right? Like you don't want to pass out or fall asleep, but you do want to feel calmer than when it was that you started, right? So after you do this, I want you to then start to play that that script that you wrote out in your mind. So remember, you've written down how you feel, what was gonna happen in that situation where you're interacting with people and you'd normally be shy, but now you're imagining what would it look like showing up confidently, what would it look like pretty much engaging in a conversation that you enjoy and the other person enjoys, right? And so you're doing that, and I want you to go through those motions in your mind. See yourself, or you see the scenario. Almost like for me, I'm very visual, so it's it kind of comes, but I would say there isn't really a right or wrong way. If you're observing it first person, cool. If you're observing it third person, cool. I'm a third person myself. um I think it might be years of video games that did that to me. Like, I like to see, the entire body. That sounds that sounds somehow, but I like to the entire body when I'm playing games, right? And also even just when you're dreaming, like a lot of people dream. Some people might dream like they're there, or some people are watching the entire scenario, including their placeholder. Whichever one, it doesn't really matter. Just imagine that scenario, and you're gonna get distracted, but you're gonna just anytime your mind drifts to something else, you come back to that what you remember, and you start building that image in your mind of, I'm talking confidently, I'm not shy. Imagine yourself in the calmness. Imagine people responding positively to you. Imagine people smiling at you. Imagine you smiling and enjoying the conversation. And you're gonna want to continue doing this for the rest of, you know, the time that your timer has been set on, right? 10 minutes, 5 minutes, whichever one you're comfortable with, right? And all while you're doing this, I would advise to continue trying to breathe in and out, just so that you stay in that state of relaxation. And it's very grounding for you to remain focused on what you're doing, and just do this as often as possible, right? If you just dedicate, okay, you have a a big social event you want to go to in a month's time. For the next month, this is what I would expect you to do, right? Almost every day. Just imagine those things. Imagine what a good outcome looks like, amongst other things too. Like, I wouldn't tell you just do visualization in that, because look at it like this, right? If you're going to be visualizing a positive outcome, you need to also have criteria for what a positive interaction between you and someone looks like, right? So you also still need to go out and get that kind of information, read books about, connecting with people. Like, I really enjoyed How to Influence People and Make Friends. I don't remember who wrote that book, but it's a pretty famous, like, it's like one of the most famous books in terms of connecting with people. And it just gave me an idea of, what an ideal of some sort could look like, right? So you need to find things that inspire your ideal. Maybe you remember a scene from a movie that you really thought was, oh, like, I'd like to be like this person, like realistically, so of course, and how they engaged. Use that to feed into your visualization, so that your brain will continue to move in that direction, right? What is happening when you're doing that is you're encouraging your brain to make connections that encourage that kind of behavior. So it becomes so much easier on the actual day where you're in front of people. You imagine what is going to happen. You're no longer anxious, because normally you would have spent the entire month, if you're someone who is, on the socially awkward side, right? You spend the entire month dreading that situation. It's just going to make it worse, versus you've gotten to a place where you've already imagined this going well. Even if it's not the perfect day, you'd no longer come in there super anxious. You're a lot more calm. You've almost had 30 days of doing this, of going out to that situation before it, right? And like, when people are trying to change behaviors, in terms of like phobias and fears, the best strategy that a lot of psychotherapists use is exposure therapy, which is I'm going to expose you to this thing versus run away from it, right? So that you become so used to it that you're no longer scared. And in that way, you're actually able to go out there and do what it is you need to do. Now imagine doing these visualizations and actually doing more of the real life thing, which is actually going out there and meeting people, right? Imagine doing that for a year. You're not going to be the same ever, ever. And I can attest to that myself. Like I was super introverted when I was younger, and I just got tired of going out to situations and being just feeling, you know, like loads of pressure and all of that. And I started practicing this. I started going out there more and more, and now like I can cut my way through pretty much any room. It doesn't change the fact that it's not my entire preference. Like I wouldn't say I love going out, but I now have the skills to make a choice to know I'm not staying inside because I can't be outside. I stay inside because I don't feel like going out today. And the days that I do go out, I can connect with people and show up in a way that I'm proud of, and would also make people comfortable to want to connect, right? So that is just my simple how to visualize. 3 steps. Write it out. Write out what your ideal looks for. Go do research, go read books, go look to people you look up to, and script what you would look like in that ideal situation, what you would like to look like, and remember in as much detail as possible how you feel, how it looks, everything as much as possible. And read that often too. Read that before every session until it becomes very like ingrained in your mind, right? The next one is to relax. Breathing techniques are the best. Deep breaths in through your nose, belly out on the inhales, belly in on the exhales, so that you're actually getting loads of oxygen into your system and you can calm down. And then you do what you need to do, right? You imagine that scenario. You start from top to bottom. Anytime you get distracted, it's perfectly fine. Come back to it, go again. And just do that often. And I promise you, you're gonna see some very impressive changes in your actual performance. You can do this now with anything else. You have a presentation, do the same thing. What are scenarios? You want to start going to the gym. Instead of imagining yourself waking up late and not going, imagine yourself going to the gym, even though it feels terrible, right? Initially, imagine all of that over and over and over again. I do this all the time for like job interviews. I do this all the time when I'm trying to like learn a new habit. I imagine myself being successful because it starts in here. It starts in here. And before we even get into the more like, okay, what is the fundamental um principle that makes visualization work, just off just the bat, that works before we even start getting into anything metaphysical or anything that is even like um deeply psychological, just on your brain level. Your brain, the same areas of your brain that activate when you think something are the same when you do something. So get your brain used to it, get conditioned to it, so that you go out there and you kill it, right? So I hope this was helpful. Share this with anyone that you feel like this would also help as well. And you know, I'm rooting for you, and let me know in the comments how it goes, your experiences, any more questions that you have. All right.